Let me ask you something. If the stock market lost half its value tomorrow and stayed there for years, what would your life actually look like? That exact scenario has happened 3 separate times in the last 100 years: 1929, 2008, 2020, and every single time, millions of people watched their retirement get erased. But a tiny, almost invisible group of investors didn't just survive. They multiplied their money. I'm not talking about crypto geniuses or Wall Street insiders. I'm talking about people who owned 4 shockingly boring assets. The kind of stuff your grandfather might have understood. The kind of stuff that less than 2% of investors hold today. America's $184 trillion in household wealth isn't protected by hope. It's protected by positioning. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those 4 assets are, why they have exploded up in value during every major collapse. This might be the most profitable 13 minutes you spend this year. First, let us talk about how smart money prepares for a crash. Most people talk about market crashes like they're freak earthquakes, random, unavoidable, and destructive for everyone equally. That is a comforting lie. The truth is something I call the Great Wealth Tide. When panic hits, money doesn't vanish. It shifts. It leaves the hands of people who are only prepared for blue skies and rushes into assets that have 3 specific traits: real scarcity, essential everyday use, and a century-long track record of surviving chaos. Here's what that shift actually looks like in hard numbers. In 1929, the stock market lost 89% of its value. A $100,000 portfolio became $11,000. In 2008, the S&P 500 dropped 57%. That same $100,000 had turned into $43,000. In 2022, stocks fell 19% while inflation stole another 9% of your purchasing power. A double punch. But buried inside every single one of those disasters, a handful of assets did the exact opposite. They didn't just hold their ground. They charged uphill while everything else burned. The problem? Your typical portfolio probably owns almost none of what they own. And when regular folks are panic selling at rock bottom, the smart money has plenty of unharmed assets they can monetize to buy your shares at bargain prices. Look at Warren Buffett. His fund Berkshire is sitting on almost $400 billion record pile of cash, likely earning interest, and ready to go bargain hunting when a downturn comes. By the time the media declares recovery, they've already doubled their fortunes. Which is why I need to explain. The death trap they sold you as safe is not really that safe. Financial advisors love the 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. It feels balanced. It works in a long bull market, but during a real crisis, it can be a trap. Imagine you've got $150,000 saved. A crisis hits and stocks tank 50%. If it's a deflationary shock like 2008, your bonds might cushion some of the fall, but not enough. If it's an inflationary shock like 2022, your bonds get crushed right alongside your stocks. Suddenly, you're down 30, 40, even 50%, with no spare cash to buy bargains and years of recovery ahead of you. Meanwhile, there's a quiet group of people whose accounts are behaving completely differently. Their assets are rising, paying dividends, or barely budging while everything else craters. They're not panicking. They're calmly buying your beaten down shares at 50 cents on the dollar. So who are these smart money people, and what exactly do they own? Let me walk you through the 4 assets. First, take a look at the gold mine that outran the Great Depression. 1929, the Great Depression. Unemployment hits 25%. Banks are failing. It was the worst economic disaster in modern American history. But one company, Homestake Mining, the biggest gold producer in the US, didn't just survive. It soared 474%. In Canada, Dome Mines did even better, climbing 558%. While the world was selling everything, governments and wealthy families fled to physical gold, and the miners who pulled it out of the ground saw their profits explode. Fast forward to 2008. Same pattern. From the market bottom in March 2009 to the peak in September 2011, gold mining stocks more than doubled in value. Now I have to be honest with you. These same mining stocks later crashed 80% between 2011 and 2015. They are wildly volatile. You don't buy them and forget about them. You treat them like a crisis tool. You accumulate when nobody wants them, and you have a plan to take profits when the panic fades. Today, barely 2% of US investors own gold miners. Why? Because Wall Street earns no commissions pushing them. They'd much rather keep you in index funds, where they can collect fees forever. An asset that gained 474% during the Great Depression, and almost nobody owns it. That's not an accident. The panic button that pays 30% in a meltdown. Here's an asset so boring most people skip past it. Long-term US Treasury bonds. In November 2008, while Lehman Brothers was collapsing and stocks were in free fall, the iShares 20-plus year Treasury bond ETF, ticker TLT, jumped nearly 15% in a single month. For the full year, TLT returned about 32%, while the S&P 500 lost 35%. That's a gap of 67%. Why? It's called the flight to safety. When the world catches fire, pension funds, foreign governments, and insurance companies need someplace to park billions of dollars. They flood into US government debt. Demand skyrockets, prices surge, and anyone who already owned those bonds watches their value shoot up. But here's the catch. You have to own them before the headlines scream recession. By the time your coworkers are panicking, the gains are already gone. And yes, in 2022, long-term bonds had their worst year ever. Down over 30%, because bonds protect you from deflation, not from runaway inflation. That's exactly why you need more than one crisis asset, different shields for different storms. So what if there is another inflation crisis? This is where the third asset comes in. Land-grabbing billionaires try to hide, specifically farmland. Bill Gates, yes, the founder of Microsoft, is the largest private farmland owner in the United States. He holds over 270,000 acres. When someone with that much access to information is quietly hoarding dirt, it's worth asking why. According to the NCREIF Farmland Index, U.S. farmland delivered a 15.8% return in 2008, even while the stock market was imploding. From 2000 to 2020, farmland averaged roughly 11.5% per year with less volatility than stocks. The logic is simple. They aren't making more land. Productive farmland is actually shrinking because of urban sprawl and climate shifts. Population keeps growing. Everyone needs to eat. And unlike gold, farmland generates cash flow, 3% to 5% annually from crop harvest, even if land prices stagnate. But during the Great Depression, farmland did get hit hard in some regions. A series of strong dust storms the public called the Dust Bowl destroyed land values. But the land itself endured, and those who held on rebuilt massive wealth over the following decades. You don't need $1 billion to access this. There are farmland REITs like Gladstone Land, ticker LAND, or Farmland Partners, ticker FPI, listed on the stock market. They own thousands of acres and pay out dividends from the rent farmers pay. No tractor required. The fourth asset smart money owns has a similar characteristic as farmland. That is, the products you buy even in a recession. Consumer staples are the quiet champions of every downturn. In the 2008 crash, while the S&P 500 got cut in half, the Consumer Staples Select Sector ETF, ticker XLP, dropped only about 30%. Walmart actually gained about 19% that year. McDonald's went up 6%. These stocks don't double overnight, they just bleed less. And that smaller drop is a superpower. It's simple math the super rich understand, but what the 90% struggle to accept. If your stock market concentrated portfolio falls 57%, you need a 132% gain just to get back to even. But if it only falls 30% because you've positioned into consumer staples, you need just a 44% gain to recover. A third of what you need to recover compared to a 57% loss. Recovering faster means you start compounding sooner. Over a lifetime or even a span of 10 years, this creates a massive gap. What the 1% fear most is losing money. What the 99% fear most is missing out on the next Nvidia. This is the key difference in mindset. So, does smart money not care about chasing a bull market? Not exactly. The twin playbook secret. Most people are taught one playbook: buy growth, chase momentum, index funds for the long run. That's wallet one. The prosperity wallet. It works when the sun is shining, but wealthy families carry a second wallet. Wallet 2 contains crisis assets, gold miners, long-term treasuries, farmland, consumer staples. It's not designed to make you rich in a boom. It's designed to keep you alive and buying when everyone else is liquidating. The great wealth transfers of history aren't random. They happen because one group plays both wallets while the rest of the world only plays one. And right now, the warning signs for a potential storm are piling up. The yield curve, one of the most reliable recession signals, has been inverted. That's occurred before every single US recession since 1957. Every single one. Consumer credit card debt just hit $1.2 trillion, an all-time high. Corporate debt is at record levels and commercial real estate is under serious stress. I'm not predicting a crash, but the conditions are uncomfortably similar to the quiet periods that preceded previous ones. Analysts ignore staples during bull markets because they're not exciting. But when chaos hits, boring becomes beautiful. The financial industry profits when you buy and hold index funds through every crash, paying management fees while your portfolio bleeds. They can even shove whatever they want to sell to you into those very index funds even though you might not want it. Just take a look at our SpaceX video, how NASDAQ rewrote their rules to include SpaceX stock into the index, even though it does not meet the traditional criteria. So, the question is how to start building the second wallet. In 2007, a handful of family offices quietly positioned themselves in these exact assets. When 2008 hit, they didn't panic. They bought stocks from desperate sellers for pennies on the dollar. By 2012, they had multiplied their capital while most people were still trying to break even. They weren't smarter. They didn't do a big short like Michael Berry. They just had a second wallet. Perhaps we can learn from them. Not shift all your assets tomorrow in a panic, but deliberately over the next few weeks or months. Gold miners, perhaps GDX, the Van Eck Gold Miners, ETF, or individual names like Newman and Barrick Gold. Treasury exposure, TLT, the iShares 20-plus year Treasury Bond Fund. Farmland, REITs like Land and FP. I give you liquid, tradable exposure to agricultural real estate. Consumer staples, the very brands you see in your local grocery store, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Walmart, Costco, whatever. Or just the XLPETF and get the whole basket in one trade. The next crisis will bring the same story. You pick whether you'll be the one selling in fear or the one buying with calm. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who's been told to just buy the index and hold forever. Hit like and subscribe for more explainers that pull back the curtain on finance and economics. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.